I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Karen Huber, our Texas County Commissioner for Precinct 3, and I want to welcome her to the stage.
Thank you, Doug. I have to start out by saying I think that Steve Zabranik demonstrated a lot of courage in putting a blonde last on the list this morning. And actually, as Steve Jones mentioned when he started out earlier, that he had been instructed to give positive news so that we'd all leave here feeling good. I was in a chat with our county auditor the other day telling her I was going to speak to this group. And she said, "Oh, paint doom and gloom. Then whenever it turns out good, everybody will feel happy." So actually, I have a little of a mix of both. And I think I'll start out just by saying that, as you know, I've just been in office 2 years at Travis County, and I am so proud that this is my precinct. Even though it's half of the county and a lot to cover, it's, in my opinion, the most dynamic, the very well-educated people, good municipal governments to work with, good businesses that are thriving, a winning football team. You know, we're on a roll out here. We really are. I don't think anybody doubts that. I think our challenge is how do we stay on a roll? And that's actually one of the reasons I ran for office, was because I feel like we have a quality of life that all of us moved out here to enjoy. And we have to keep working at it to maintain it. And we do have some challenges. To give you a little bit of background, one of the best surprises, I don't know if it was a surprise, but one of the things I was really proud of as I dug into Travis County government was we can really brag about how Travis County manages its finances. We have not had to cut services this last year. We have had a AAA bond rating for the last several decades. We are very good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. Your percentage of Travis County taxes for decades has on the property taxes has hovered around 17%. Our tax rate this year is actually lower than it was in 2006. And one of the reasons that we can stay so constant, along with good management of the money, is that we pretty much, the biggest part of our budget is $700 million this year, is the public safety component, the courts, the jails, law enforcement, emergency services. And the reason I was talking with the auditor, I was saying, how do we put a dollar figure or a percentage figure on our unfunded mandates? Counties in Texas are directed by the state that they have to provide these services. And she said it's really hard to put, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so and 23 cents. But when she had done some work on it a while back and said, when you look at the number of employees that are providing these services and the associated costs with delivering them operational, it turns out to be about 70% of the budget. And the rest of that is in development services and some of the health and human services and things like that. So we pretty much, our biggest focus is on what we're mandated to do. Now, how does that relate to us out here? Well, I'll tell you how it relates to us out here right now from a standpoint of looking forward. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but after the other speakers, but we are really worried about what's going to happen at the legislature with the deficit that we're facing. I saw some statistics the other day. Well, actually, there was an article in the paper. I don't know if you read it or not. It was a New York Times article called Texas Omen. And we actually, if you boil all the data down, and this is Texas-wide, not our area, but Texas-wise, we have a deficit that's not out of sync with what California is experiencing. It sounds like we're we're up to here, then we're going to have to deal with it. The scary thing about our deficit in Texas is that we're next to the lowest on the list, or right at the bottom of the list, on our education, on our health care. And when they start cutting services at the state, these tend to be areas that they cut the services in. So that's a challenge that we look at, and what happens when they start cutting social services, which is another area they'll cut, is that really comes right back on the county, because we have the law enforcement, we have the jails, we have the court system. And a lot of the people that benefit from the social services that we have out there, it's keeping parolees from going back to prison. A few dollars spent here save us a lot of dollars if they don't go back to prison. When we start cutting those services, then the county's costs tend to go up exponentially. So we have been in really good shape on our budget, but we've known for the last 2 or 3 years that 2012 is probably going to be our biggest and most challenging year. And it is because of, we don't know, but because of what we don't know, it's going to come out of the legislature this session. But it'll be there, and we'll have to deal with it. But there's some good news on law enforcement. I can't sing enough praises for our sheriff. He does a fabulous job, as does your law enforcement out here. And we all have a good working relationship, and it's dynamic, and I'm proud of it. But we did add 5 new law enforcement officers this year and 9 corrections officers. That should help keep things moving in the right direction. And the other thing I wanted to say is that law enforcement technology has been on the increase at the county. There are good services through their website. I encourage you to check it out if you have any questions about the law enforcement in an area. They're in the process of upgrading that technology and hiring an individual to expand that further. But the other thing that we're looking at the county, which is kind of scary, is we have a huge group of people in senior management levels across the county, and including law enforcement, that are looking at retirement. And when those people start retiring, which some of them have put off because of the economy, when they start retiring, we have to start hiring, and in law enforcement it takes 4 months to put someone back on the street when someone has retired from a patrol position. So we're trying to stay on top of those things, but that's kind of some of the things we're looking at the county. Emergency services. There's good news there and there's challenges there. And I want to first compliment the Lake Travis Fire and Rescue, because Chief Leonardis has been a godsend to us. He's taken such a leadership role in the entire county from a standpoint of addressing the challenges that we have in emergency services. Many of you may not know this, but emergency service districts in the county in Texas are only allowed to tax at 10 cents per $100 valuation. Municipalities can tax at 20 cents per $100 valuation. So that works all right if you don't have a real dense unincorporated area or municipal area like Lakeway that the Emergency Services District is serving. When it gets more dense, people are expecting the same kind of services they get in town. And that makes it challenging from a standpoint of personnel and equipment. So I just can't tell you how lucky you are to have like Travis Fire and Rescue and Chief Leonardis and his team, because they have continued to be able to provide to you the kind of services at the expectation levels I think you are looking at. But they're all challenged out there. So I thank you, Chief, for what you're doing in that category. We probably will be looking at some legislation to try to help ease that burden in some way. In Emergency Services Starflight, we've added another helicopter. That is particularly important to this area around the lake because we now have the 3rd helicopter, so we've got more equipment, more available, quicker to do that. We've also are launching into a study of the EMS services to look at response times and what we might do to improve in that category. You can just look at the geography and know the challenges we have out here. I'm really glad Doug Land did such a good job on real estate, because I don't have to cover all this now. But I will say that I was at the Home Builders forecast the other day, and the economist pointed out that the Central Texas region has been the #1 performing economy in the nation in 2010. And they were 27th, or we were 27th in the world. That's really good news. But along with the fact that we've been discovered, and by, as Doug pointed out, by virtue of the economics of different regions, our land and our pricing on our homes is still inexpensive. We have continued to enjoy throughout this downturn a net immigration, and we've been able to keep our jobless rates down. But as we are looking at this explosion in population, we're going to be having to look at increasing more jobs faster to keep up with that. So that's a challenge, but we've got a dynamic community in this greater Lake Travis area, and I think that's as much of a positive as it is a challenge. We're not seeing a lot of movement in the unincorporated areas on subdivisions and growth out there, and I think it's probably in part, it was mentioned earlier, it's a function of lending and financing for projects. We've seen a number of, most of them are 30, 40 acres subdivisions that have come in, and not a lot of those. Several of you, the ones closer in the municipalities seem to be doing really well. The Sweetwater, the big one on 71 that you may be aware of, I understand has been bought, but we don't see any movement yet at the county on that from moving forward and actual developing it out. Rocky Creek is actively building homes out there on Hamilton Pool Road. West Cypress Hills continues to grow. And my guru, Mark Sprague, who I think is a guru to the real estate industry as well, tells me that there are 2,247 undeveloped lots available to move in the unincorporated area. One of my goals as commissioner is to get our Transportation and Natural Resources Department more automated so we can get data like that. Right now I have to go out of house to get it. One of the things I would say from a growth standpoint is any of you involved in actual growth issues from a standpoint of development or real estate is follow the water. The biggest challenge that we're going to have, I mean, it's wonderful we can sit and look out here at this lake level today. Some of you may remember what it was like in '09. We're in a drought. We have real challenges on our lake levels and where our surface water is delivered as well. That's something my office continues to work on, and everyone here, let me say that one more time, everyone here should pay attention to water. Water policy in Texas is so fragmented that it's just like shattered glass on the floor. One decision-making body often can trump another's decision-making body. If you don't like the answer that you get one place, go another place. We don't have enough water delivery in western Travis County for fire protection. As we grow more out there, that's going to be an even bigger challenge because there's more risk of fire getting started. Water is something that we need to be actively involved in any way we can. Because in my opinion, and I've been looking at this a lot in the last 2 years, we are bumping up against our max as we do it now. It doesn't mean there won't be water for the future, but we're going to have to be a whole lot smarter about how we utilize the water here. We really are an arid area. We really are a desert area. We get big downbursts and most of them go right on out to the Gulf of Mexico. What did I do? Maybe that's someone speaking and endorsing the water problem. LCRA is right now going through a water management plan, looking at lake levels and how they manage the water here. When LCRA was created and these dams were created, they were just for flood control and water reservoirs. We didn't have the dynamic economy around the lake that we have now. And so we have to pay closer attention to maybe if LCRA could release a month later or a month sooner its water downstream for the rice farmers and the other interests, that can make a difference in our businesses, but depending on the time of the year. So we need to pay attention to that. Last go around when they did a water management plan, I heard it took them either 7 or 9 years. We need that sooner than this. So if any of you are players in that, nudge that process along in a positive way. The last thing I want to mention that I'll just throw out, because I think it's really important as we continue to grow economically out here, and that is the lack of affordable housing out here. The land by our standards here is too expensive, And we don't have, and as we continue to grow, we will even have less of affordable housing that will help drive our economy from a support services standpoint. So that's an area that's challenging. And quite frankly, the kind of HUD grants that we get to invest in affordable housing for the most part, our demographics out here in Western Travis County don't meet the criteria. We're too affluent. So we've got to look at some creative ways to get affordable housing. Transportation, do I dare go there? The transportation, I think, next to water is, and it used to be the number one, I think it's number two now, but the transportation is going to be our biggest challenge out here. The state, with its financial problems, has opted to do toll roads for its major roads. That leaves our farm-to-market roads and our ranch roads kind of to fend for themselves. There's just not the money to put in it. When we finish the current projects that are under construction right now for improvements on 71, there's not another major project in the next 5 years. There's really not any major projects in the Campo 2035 plan out in this area. The Y at Oak Hill, which at $500 million is highly financially challenged, is the only other major project out this way. I will say this, that they're going to do, TxDOT is planning to do, they've been working with the city and the county to do some tweaking of that way the traffic flows in the Y area to try to improve it through there, and think that we can get that done in the next several years, which will be a fix for about 5 years. But it's not the solution. So I think one of the things we're really looking at in transportation is the gray future of how are we going to build the roads that we need and upgrade the roads that we need. And one of the things I wanted to mention, and especially because we have such an excellent example here, is we're seeing more and more public-private partnerships for roads. And the Highland Boulevard was a public-private partnership with Haitham Dahlad and his outfit, and it's been a really successful project. We're seeing that same kind of thing happen on the east side of the county. And if we're going to get the roads in place that we need, we may have to look at more public-private partnerships like that, or other creative mechanisms. One of the things that I wanted to say is that Precinct 3, just Precinct 3, has 648 miles of county-maintained roads. Many, many, many of those roads, not unlike Flint Rock Road, were acquired by the county for maintenance and were built before there were any standards for safety. So we have a tremendous amount of what I would call substandard roads in our portfolio. So many, with 648 miles of them, that there's no way that we're going to be able to continue to upgrade those in ways that the population surge would like to see. And as we get more, and most of the development in the unincorporated area ends up being off of one of these roads, like Bee Creek Road or Hamilton Pool. So as we get more population growth out there, the safety challenges on those roads become more obvious, and we have more accidents. And actually, there seems to have been a surge lately in young people, teenage drivers, single car, speeding on these road kind of accidents. And I really encourage all of you to talk to your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors, and tell them the speed limit's 45. If they go 50 and hit that sharp curve, they're going to miss the curve. And they don't realize that. So that's something I'm really worried about and intend to try to continue to work on from an educational standpoint. But it is a factor in some of the challenges that we're dealing with. I got a little sign there, so I have to wrap up. I appreciate Rocky Kirk laying the foundation for a bond election. We are just now, in fact, we're taking applicants for our bond committee through February 3rd. It should be up on the website today. If any of you are interested in serving on that bond committee for Travis County, I encourage you to either contact my office or go online and make an application. The thing I want to say about the bond election is we've got, our transportation challenges are interwoven into this. We made our TNR department cut down their wish list of almost 500 million in transportation to somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 million. Now that sounds like a lot, but I think Superintendent Kirk did a good job of explaining how that's dealt with throughout the process of taxpayer payback. And I remind you, like what I said at the beginning, is that we've been able to hold it constant for years, and we look prudently at how that is spread out and how that's applied. But the biggest thing with the transportation bonds is that money generally has gone to upgrade these county-maintained roads. Now we're having to look at some of the more critical state roads that TxDOT is absolutely not addressing. And for the first time ever, the county's been, we made an application last year for pass-through financing. That basically says the county, we taxpayers, pay for the upgrades on this road, and TxDOT pays us back over time. It seems to be one of the few ways that we can move forward, but when we go to upgrading a TxDOT road, then we don't have that money for our county roads. So that's another challenge that we're facing there. I wanted to go right back to the water issue to close. One of the things is we're looking at the challenges that we have in water in the future. It's critical that we have the tools in our toolbox to help our policymakers make good decisions. And one of the tools that a collaboration of effort around this lake is working on right now, we've got all the municipalities that are actually on the lake, the bigger water districts, Lake Travis Chamber and the Chamber from the north side of the lake, and we're getting ready to pursue a study of the economic value of Lake Travis and what Lake Travis actually puts back into the economy. And if you have an interest in knowing more about this, would like to participate in it from a business standpoint, we'll be looking at the lake levels and how changes in the lake levels affect our businesses and how water quality affects the cost of our water that we get, that when it has to be treated, that kind of thing. So you can contact Laura Mitchell. She can tell you more about it. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on that because that's a tool that's missing for us when policy making is being made at the legislature and LCRA and TCEQ. Thank you. And I thank you. And I'm so proud to be a part of this community.